Welcome back. Today I'd like to dive a little deeper into ground rules. What they are, why they matter, and how you can most effectively use them. So ground rules are essentially common agreements for how the discussion will be managed. It's essentially the rules of the road for the session that you facilitate. Some common ground rules I often use include one conversation at a time, be present, or Elmo, one of my favorites and the subject of a previous blog post. So why do ground rules matter? I find that they can be incredibly helpful as you anticipate potential issues in a room and can address them up front. So let me give you an example. If you find that you're in a session where people tend to talk over each other, then introducing the ground rule of one conversation at a time on the front end of the discussion can make it much easier for you to address that situation if it occurs. If the room starts to get a bit raucous, you can always point back to the ground rule and say, hey, don't forget, one of the ground rules we had here was one conversation at a time, versus calling out an individual or a couple of individuals in the moment for the first time. It's more empowering to them, and it certainly makes your job as a facilitator easier to manage. So let's talk about how to use ground rules. In my mind, one of the most important characteristics of ground rules is that they become the participants and not yours as a facilitator. So to make that happen, there are 4 or 5 steps that I think are important. The first is share some as suggestions. And then ask the room, are there any others that you all believe would be helpful for this conversation? And then after you've gotten that list, then I ask for a show of hands of how many people can live with and support those ground rules and agree to self-manage to those ground rules. And then the 4th thing I do is I post it and I make it very visible to the room. In this way, you can very effectively transition this from your initial list to their list as a governing tool throughout the workshop. I would be remiss if I didn't remind you that as a workshop facilitator, you should look for opportunities to customize these ground rules based on the specific dynamics that you anticipate in this room. If you anticipate that people are going to be tied to their cell phones, or talking over each other, or maybe even being engaged in personal attacks, use ground rules that anticipate those situations and get them out there early. You will find it can be a very effective tool to manage those situations when they occur. Thank you. I hope you found this helpful.